Howdy folks, welcome to the Scannell Agenda. This is episode number 69. Today's date is July 20th, 2017. The show is entitled, I Have Solved the Energy Crisis and Perhaps Global Warming. So welcome to another program. I have recently put on one of these GoFundMe pages, and I've explicitly said, do not send any money until you know that I've solved the energy crisis. Now, it's one thing for me to know it, and I do know it. I've solved the energy crisis. I've known this for years, that this blueprint of the TRIPE system, which stands for track pipe, that's a real keeper. That should be fast-tracked and run the numbers on that, and they're going to look good. The numbers are going to look really good because you've got a full combination plate of systems that pay into one broader system. So that's what really does it with this particular system that I'm now calling the Green Grid T. Green meaning green energy, green everything. So the three green fuels of the future are hydrogen, compressed air, and oxygen-rich compressed air. And this is the main purpose of this grid, is to carry these green fuels, which we can produce easily in distant waters offshore, even down into the Antarctic region. We can produce it anywhere in the world. Anywhere where there's good wind, we can really take advantage of that wind and then put the energy in the pipe, as it were. Now, if you understand hydrogen, you'll know that you have to crack the water into its two components of hydrogen and oxygen, H2O, that's water. So you crack those apart and you get your two fuels of hydrogen and oxygen, which are both very volatile, but they're both very environmental. Environmentally green is the word here today. That's the big buzzword, is it green? How green do you want to be? I mean, how green can you possibly be using hydrogen and oxygen as your fuels? So the other fuel, I call it fuel euphemistically because it's just compressed air. Highly charged compressed air is what I would call a kinetic energy helper, but for our purposes, let's call it a fuel. It may be burned, but chances are it'll just be used for the mechanical energy. Now, what are your main purposes for using mechanical energy? They're huge, a long list. Refrigeration, that's with compressed air. Air conditioning with compressed air. And of course, you have a little electricity that goes along with it, but your main charge of energy is the compressed air. Those two, in and of themselves, are staggeringly huge. And then you've got a heat pump, which operates also using the compressed air for heat, you know. But the main thing with the frozen electricity, or hydrogen, is that we have electricity where and when we want it and need it. And that in conjunction with the PV cells, photovoltaic cells, we will be saying goodbye to the fossil fuels and the old dinosaur energy grids of the past. These are the smart grids. Smart electric grids aren't smart. You have to have green grids. The green grid is the smart grid. And the old grid is just that. It's just the old grid. Of course, we have to plan for phasing out the old and phasing in the new. So we phase out these systems using a consortium approach. And the consortium for the Green Grid Transit system, it buys out your old energy infrastructure, whether it's an old railroad or an old power plant or the old transmission lines. And we just buy out as we go in. and that would be a capital transformation rather than a capital against capital battle. So that is how we're going to handle that. It's a waste of money in one respect. We could have a big fight, but the fight is what it's going to cost us time and money, and we can't afford a lot of time and money. We have to get this green energy system up and running. So the Love Power Grid Consortium is something I've had on my drawing board for many years. And you'll see a list here. I'm going to go to the board over here. You'll see at the top of the list here is the Green Love Power Grid Consortium. And then we have down here the Green Grid T. That means green energy or green everything. And then the grid is where we hold the energy and ship the energy. It's not just like the power lines is different. See, the power lines, you can't store energy. But with the green grid, we can actually store massive amounts of energy in the forms of our new green fuels of the future, your hydrogen, your compressed air, and your oxygen-rich compressed air. So my wife and I also do prayer and pizza, and we've never been the types of people looking for money. I've been too busy, and she's always too busy. We just living our lives, doing well. We've been married almost 2.5 years. My wife Pam has her show, Prayer and Pizza, which I'm on quite a bit. And we also have a show called The Hyannis Honeymooners, which we're dabbling in. So we're having a good time, and what we want to do is have a good time putting this idea here on the map, and we've really been praying that this idea get recognized and be on the table. It really should be on the table, and it hasn't been on the table. I guess Cape Codders don't think this is a good idea. I don't know. Because it's not in the Cape Cod Times, that means it's not a good idea. Well, let me tell you, the Cape Cod Times has a lot of issues and problems. And so, you know, if they don't want to cover something, there's really probably a good reason why it should be covered. And that list is long. So the Scannell agenda covers these issues. The waterfront type stuff on Nantucket was an old show I had many, many years ago on Nantucket, and that covered some of these types of issues. It was mostly fisheries. I did some tobacco and marijuana issues on that show, a few other things. Now, we're not going to make this whole system pay unless we have multiples of cash flow partners, let's say, that are into this whole system. And when I say whole system, it's a very holistic system. You couldn't afford any one of these to do any singular one of these, but together, when you bundle these systems, they happen to have a symbiotic relationship to each other, and a symbiotic relationship that'll blow your mind once you understand it. The synergy is just enormous with these, the combinations of these systems. And we're doing the show in the kitchen today, and that's no joke because, you know, any chef will tell you it's the certain combinations of the ingredients and how the ingredients are prepared and added together and presented, etc. That really makes it, you know. And the same is true for system work. I design complex systems. They are comprehensive and they are complex systems, and it keeps my mind busy. As I've said before, I don't do the Sudoku. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I just don't do these puzzles. I do the real life puzzles. That's what keeps me occupied. Now, among the many additives financially, probably the top would be the fiber optic system. If you have pipes that carry the system, and the pipes are like so, and maybe there's, you know, maybe this has 3 pipes here. The pipe breakdown is the backbone, and what goes into the pipes is a real challenge. But the fiber optic, I was thinking, would be excellent. It will allow us to go many, many more areas much faster with this green grid system, because we'll be able to charge a lot of money for fiber optic services with a nationalized fiber optic system that is part of the Love Power Grid Consortium. We don't want to play around. We got to get this thing under control. It's like a house on fire with the global warming. It's more serious than you understand. Even if you are a scientist and do understand it, it's more serious than we all understand. It's grave. The situation is as grave as being on a boat that's going down. It's that grave. Now, to the people that think it's nothing, these are the balance sheet people. These are in the real world. These are the people in the real world that don't want to be bothered with anything other than their real world, which is their balance sheet, the numbers, the bank account. Well, I think we have to take a little time out on their personal balance sheet. This is going to set us all back. It's going to be an enormous expense. However, if we structure it properly, the green grid transit system will pay dividends for a long time. Hundreds of years is what this is designed for. This is a 200-year system, as I've said before, because it's not something you have to go and paint. It's not steel. There's steel in it, but it's not to be painted. Now these pipes carry the system. These are the tripe or track pipe. This here is a track. It's a 7-foot dovetail track, I call it. And this would be the base of the train. And then your train would be up here. And then, you know, there'd be 2 floors generally, and you'd be standing here. Okay, that's you. So the T is classically used in that it's transit. It just means transit. This system can carry roadworks down here very easily. So this represents a good expansion of the road system. And of course, with the autonomous vehicles, the road system has a future, always will have a future. Now these dovetail tracks are lined up to be 7, 7, 7, and I have a 10.5 foot space so that you could have basically a wider train and it would be quite plush. You could also do, if you're running from California to Georgia with containers, as I plan for this system, you'll have some dedicated 777 lines which you'll be able to carry your containers sideways and run them at about 180 miles an hour right across country. This will be a great advantage to our agriculture and manufacturing. So down in here, we have various utility uses such as the pod transit. Now the pods, as I've explained, are for pallets and people, and they're pretty fast, moderately fast. They're not a bullet train, but they'll get you to where you're going, probably overnight, and you can wake up in your pod and be where you want to be. The pod can probably convert or be placed onto an automobile, or the pallet pod can be directed directly to your shop or your store, what have you, the grocery store. So we're looking at huge changes in our society with these automated transit systems that are coming up quickly. So this is part and parcel of automated transit systems. So you'll have pallets traveling, you know, throughout the world on these in these pod channels, which are a little different. They can go up here too, though. They can be used directly on the 777 line. Now you can have just one line too, and that'll work. If you're in a remote area, you'll probably be seeing a lot of singular 7-foot dovetails as the monorail. Now this is what carries the monorail here, and this will be about 120 or 130 feet above grade. So there'll be all kinds of things going on down here, and to travel on the train, on the Green Grid T, you'll be able to see an enormous amount. So the fiber optic is the big money if we nationalize the communications conduit systems. I'm not talking about nationalizing all the TV studios, etc. I'm just talking about nationalizing the conduits. Now these are always growing and leapfrogging in technology, but we're at a point where I think we can appreciate that the fiber optic system that we've got now with communication, all the telecommunication systems are at a point where this would be an opportune time to have all these systems get absorbed into the Love Power Grid Consortium, or the consortium, if you will, and then charge more for your cell phone, charge more for your television and your entertainment and your computer hookups, etc. All the money would then go back into paying for this system, because we don't want to go too much into the red when we build this system. It's basically a $300 trillion system worldwide, but we must get off of the fossil fuels. We must stop global warming. We must get this monkey off our backs. It's a terrible thing if we don't. Now, the other major additions in the pipes will go probably about 5 or 6 different or 8 different types of sanitations. And that means your number 1, your number 2, these are bioproducts. Usually to go into a sewer line, we mix everything all up and then we poison it and we try to dispose of it, and it's really not working out. And the septic situation here on the Cape, go to Eastham, ask them if it's working out. They're kind of the canary in the coal mine. It's not working out. Poisoning the...
10 minutes.
Thanks, Dave. 10 minutes to go. Poisoning our effluents, it's not going to work. So, the multiple cash flows. First of all, can we do this? Can we put water in pipes and ship it? Can these pipes be used as a backbone for a transit system? The answer is yes. These are all simple questions. Can we use the 3 green fuels of the future? List those 3. Can we use hydrogen everywhere? Can we use compressed air everywhere? Can we use oxygen-rich compressed air everywhere? Yes, 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 yes. Fiber optic. Why shouldn't it go in these pipes? Why shouldn't we take over the telecommunications industry and absorb them into this greater system, the Love Power Grid Consortium? Why shouldn't we? It's the best business model going. Now, as far as natural gas goes, do you know what it costs? And if you look at the natural gas systems, my God, it's an enormous network, but it's a failing network. This will take over that failing network and will absorb the gas transportation for the most part. There are many lines that are workable and viable and good, of course, as well, water lines and sanitation lines. This is nothing that has to be done overnight. You don't have to switch everything completely overnight. You phase it in. Now, we can bring in a lot of power from the Great Plains, running from West Texas right up through the eastern part of Colorado and straight up through the eastern regions of North and South Dakota. Those are the Great Plains. And then we end up in Canada, more to the north, where all the tar sands are. And these tie in very well for energy purposes. The Great Plains are an enormous source of our new energy. And Georges Bank will be, hopefully, an enormous area where fish thrive again, thanks to the green grid and the Georges Bank mega mills, which will be partially artificial reefs and windmills and wave generators. So what else goes in? Fiber optic, gas, water, sanitation, And of course you get a multi-modal transit system. You got your roads, and you got your subways going into the city, which will be converted to these dovetail tracks. So you'll be able to ride from Boston right through to Hyannis, and then have your pod, if that's what it is, just clip onto a nice high-speed catamaran, and bang, you're almost in Nantucket from Boston within the hour leaving from Boston with this system, or less. So these carry, this is all across, these cross pipes here, they carry. And that took a while to get there from here, you know, because I didn't know what these things, my old systems were basically pipes on the ground, which will work and could work in certain areas. I called it a wide gauge transit system. But this is much superior to that. It's like I was trying to redesign the old train systems. Now all the old railways will be purchased by the Love Power Grid Consortium. We're going to absorb all that transit infrastructure. And you'll be able to ship coal, you'll be able to ship water, anything you want goes on these dovetail tracks here. Now the dovetail track here, in this case, will have compressed air, cavernous area here for compressed air. It'll actually ride on air. It'll be an air ride system. And there'll be, the seals will be in here, right? So you'll have some compressed air. Not a lot. It doesn't take a lot to lift what you've got, and what you've got isn't really heavy at all. But you'll be just gliding almost across. So the energy use will be, I think it'll be very little to drive these systems. Probably all electric drives, not compressed air driven. But electric drive is probably the way to go. But that's not my area of expertise. I mean, you could drive it with anything you want, you know. So if you picture this as 7 feet from here to here, 7-foot dovetail. I did a workup on one of the other shows, but like I said, I really need all this stuff to be scanned. So I'm asking for the scan job to be done with the, what did I call that? Crowdsource funding. What is that now? I just had it on the top of my tongue here. So anyway, I did this crowdsource funding, and it'll come to me. But the point of it is, you know, I ask that people not send 1 penny, because if I have not solved the energy crisis, really, I'd like to know why. There's no one critiquing this system. The last critique I got years ago was said, oh, someone didn't like pipes. Pipes don't work. You can't use pipes. You know, that kind of thinking. But there's no real substantive critiquing of these systems, especially this system bundle here called the Green Grid T. So folks, if you want this stuff to get worked up, you're going to have to ask for it, because no one here on Cape Cod thinks it's worthy of even asking for or watching or anything else. I guess Cape Codders are kind of sick of me, really. I guess. I don't know. But I think if anyone had this stuff on my plate, I'd be looking at it pretty seriously. But it's not on your plate because you don't read about it in the newspaper. That's unfortunate. I do have a long-running battle with these newspapers. That is the truth of it. That's probably why. And I've got a long-running battle with the police, the powers that be. This goes back to the year 1717. If you look at the history, it actually does go back even further. So this is a fact. I have solved the energy crisis. And the reason I say and, perhaps a global warming, because we don't know if we turn south real quick, our biological systems could start crashing and there's no way you're going to stop these biological systems from crashing. We're going to be so sorry if we don't solve these problems. And if somebody's worried about their balance sheet and making money, oh my God, Al Gore had it the right way. He said, okay, the earth, here's the earth, and here's gold. Gold, yum, gold. You know, that was on Al Gore's show years ago, which I liked.
2.
Thank you, Dave, 2 minutes. So in 2 minutes, you got to get on the stick, folks. You got to get on this system. And the best way to do that is for a scan job to be done of my work and for people like MIT to get involved and say, all right, this doesn't belong on the table. It'll never work. Why? Why won't this ever work? Why? What's wrong with this system? Don't go into what's wrong with Steve Scannell. What's wrong with his head? You know, that's crazy talk. I've been fighting with the police. That's the only thing wrong with my head, is I've gotten in a fight with the police and with the state of Massachusetts over in a major environmental issue on Nantucket, where most people said, well, he's right. You know, I'm right, but I'm suffering with that still to this day. Tremendous persecution.
1.
Thank you, Dave. So there's a lot of other things that can go in these pipes, such as biomaterials, such as recyclable materials, such as you can run a little go-kart with your laundry or with your groceries locally. There's a lot that goes into this system. I find it hard to come up with something that doesn't connect with this system. So please support this endeavor. And thank you very much for watching the Scannell endeavor, the Scannell agenda. I have solved the energy crisis, folks, so let's get on this. Thank you very much.